Hello, Mallards. It is Wednesday, which means it's time for everybody's favorite Let's Reflect on this week's episode of Moon Knight. So this is Moon Knight episode 4. I'm sure that if you've been anywhere on the internet today, you've seen that people are really talking about this episode. And I am nothing if not a follower, so I'm going to talk about it too. My first note is for sure there's another personality because the previously on really suggested that part. Warning, spoiler alert, that has absolutely no payoff in this episode. Which is a bummer, but I assume it's coming eventually. My next note just says, ugh, I hate Harrow. That is a note that appears several times in this scroll of things that I felt during this episode. Number one feeling about Moon Knight, I hate Harrow. He's the kind of villain that I just despise. Hate a gaslighter that other people believe for reasons I don't understand. Then we get a shot of the avatar of, I think, Osiris or Horus? No, I think it's Osiris. Walking, and they do this cool spin angles thing, which was really fun. I enjoyed that. And I was totally right. There just is a room full of tiny stone gods, which means that in these last episodes, we have only one choice. And that choice is to free all of the gods for maximum chaos. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we cut into the action and Layla's just out here doing the absolute most at all times. Dragging an unconscious Stephen/Mark, and saving him repeatedly because she's awesome and because Layla should be the star of this show, but for some reason it's Mark Spector / Stephen Grant. You know, I don't know anything about Layla before this started, but she is clearly the superior creature, and it was fun to watch her take out a whole truck full of mercs with a flare. Also, am I the only one who got Back to the Future vibes from... Not that a guy in the back of a pickup truck with a gun is exclusive to Back to the Future, it just happened to make me think of that. My next comment says that Stephen is going really hard on Mark, and it's not that I don't blame him. Sorry, it's not that I blame him for that, because I definitely don't. He deserves to go hard on Mark, but it did feel a little harsh. And then we got a really pretty shot of this valley they walked through. A lot of pretty shots in this episode, and cool shots, and fun stuff. And then they walked into the camp, and it looked vacant. Not we decided that people should all go into the tomb, but sort of creepy. People are missing when they shouldn't be. And no one seems concerned. Layla and Stephen were both oh yeah, well, this seems fine. They clearly aren't listening to the stinger sounds that are playing that clearly suggest something is wrong. They also didn't notice all of the blood and the knife that I very clearly saw. So I don't know what they were doing. And then we discover that Stephen maybe also has a thing for Layla, which can you blame him? No, because she's awesome. Because she does the absolute most at all times, and she's super smart. And then they kiss, which was cute and also weird and strange and still cute. I don't know. That whole scene was a little strange. But you know what? Marvel did have Loki falling in love with his own variant. So Stephen loving the wife of his other personality totally fits, and I'm fine with it. I support this relationship. Layla really does need... I hope there's a third personality, because if somebody was gonna live up to being with Layla, there'd need to be at least 3 of the guys. Probably 4. And then... oh yeah, and then he punches himself in the face, which was hilarious. I laughed so hard at that, and I was I shouldn't be laughing at this. This should not be this funny, but I found it so funny for some reason. Just peak comedy, Oscar Isaac punching himself in the face. And then they get in, and it's really Mark is all being like, well, I should be in charge, and also stop kissing my girl, but also like, I should be in charge, but also thank you for telling her the truth about like why I'd been pushing her away, but also like, stop kissing my girl, and also give me the body. And Steven's like, no. And you know what? Steven was right. Because if Mark had been in the body for literally any of this, they wouldn't have figured a gosh darn thing out. Because Mark is a great fighter and has a decent heart somewhere in there, but he's got no idea what's going on with actual Egyptian anything. So it's a good thing that Stephen was there to solve all of the hints and follow all of the clues and make their way everywhere. And then, of course, find all the blood. And then they find this place with a lot of blood and a wooden platform, like loft. And no one at any point during this whole encounter is like, you know what's strange? It's strange that here we are in this ancient tomb that hasn't been opened in centuries. And this wooden loft is sturdy. Good, great quality. No one thinks about that, which is fine. And then they run into a zombie. So there was this bit about how this pharaoh, they figure out they're in a pharaoh's tomb, and the pharaoh would have been buried with sorcerers. And I think that the zombie is one of the sorcerers, because they talk about the other mummified people being his victims. So they buried the pharaoh with sorcerers to protect him, and they're still doing their job, essentially taking everybody who would be a grave robber and mummifying them alive. It was gross and also cool, but also gross. And really quite a scene. And then we go back to the fact that in that scene where they're being chased by the zombie mummy like grabs underneath the board on that loft and is like crawling along it, and then swings up, and like they're running around this loft and leaping on it and whatnot. The wood, totally solid. Layla takes one step out of the door onto a stone platform, and it's like, gotta crumble now. Oh my God, I can't handle this. The wood, solid, but the stone cannot happen. And then Layla gets taken, and it's terrifying, but then she fights back because she's awesome, and she like rips a zombie's arm off, and she's totally taking it hit for hit. And we watched this big guy just be completely throttled by him, so she's doing great. And then she falls over the side of a cliff. And I wrote, oh no, over the cliff? Stop throwing women off cliffs, Marvel. I clearly have feelings about that. But good news, she didn't fall all the way off. She just like tumbled over the edge, still alive. So there's that, and she climbs back out. And then Arrow shows up, and instead of walking away, this is the singular dumbest thing that Layla has done this whole time. Like the rest of the time, Layla has been top tier, smartest person in every room. But she is there all the way across the room from Harrow, and he's like, hey, I want to tell you something. And she doesn't say, I don't want to listen to anything you have to say, goodbye, which is what she should have done. No, she turns around to listen to him, because everybody has to do something dumb at some point, or plot reasons. I don't know. But we get to jump back to Stephen, where we discover this is the tomb of Alexander the Great, which is cool and is definitely full of a sarcophagus. It's compensating for something. Whew. And I think that Alexander the Great being the last avatar for Tiamat, I think it's Tiamat, for the goddess of justice, like sort of word. I don't know. That's a weird choice. It's not like Alexander the Great was particularly just, But if we're going with the she's gone off the deep end into this whole gotta judge people before they've done anything territory, maybe Alexander the Great is a good choice. And the tomb is really cool. Like, there's just a lot of cool stuff happening. I really liked it. I liked the mummy. I liked the opening of it. Like, the whole scene was so pretty. I mentioned a lot of pretty stuff in this episode, and it was so pretty. And then he takes the wrapping off the mummy, dislocates its jaw, and sticks his hand down its throat. Also a great time. Hilarious to listen to him constantly be like, sorry, Mr. Great. Sorry, sorry, sorry. Listen, I don't know. Maybe Alexander's into that. We don't know. Yeah. And then we go back to where Layla is being dumb. And we find out that Mark maybe killed her dad. Which, I was like, at this point, I could believe it. Although he seems like he doesn't do a lot of killing for Mark. Like, not in a not life and death situation. And we know that her dad was an archaeologist who, like, got killed on a job. So it seemed unlikely. But I was like, I'd believe that. Like, he carries a lot of baggage around Layla for some reason. Seems like that. So then she comes back in and she's like, hey, did you kill my dad? And then we get to watch a switch happen when they're not in costume, which was pretty cool. And I kind of liked it. It doesn't have, like, the same wild effect as the switches we've seen previously, which is where we, like, just stick with one person every time they're in control of the body. You just get to see it happen. And I liked that. And then they had a really nice conversation that the two of them should have had an absolute age ago, whenever they first met. But no one in fiction has a healthy relationship with anyone else, because we wouldn't want to watch that. So they get to have baggage instead. At which point I was like, listen, Mark's right. Like, I don't agree with Mark most of the time, but he's right. You all need to stop talking and leave. But they didn't do that. And so then Mark got shot twice. And we're back, like, full circle, because he talked about being shot and left for dead when Khonshu originally came for him. And so, like, now in trying to protect Khonshu and, like, fulfill Khonshu's duties, he's back to being shot and left for dead. So what a full circle. And then there are pretty lights. And then there's a cutaway to a clearly low budget, quote unquote, because, you know, it's still part of this, made for TV style movie with an adventurer, Indiana Jones style adventurer, whose name is, of course, Stephen Grant, which wasn't surprising because I was like, yes, of course, it's gonna be Stephen Grant. And then we just go on to this completely wild trip to a mental hospital where they're like, hey, you know what we think would be cool? If we tried to tell you that this whole show has just been a delusion perpetrated by a man with dissociative identity disorder. So we're gonna put all of the characters into this mental hospital and let you see Harrow as his psychiatrist / psychologist and Layla as another patient that talks to him a lot. And also give you a chance to, like, see Mark just sort of breaking down. And, like, obviously Stephen Grant is in this television show. That's how he made up the name. And that guy also knows a lot about gods, but specifically the Aztec goddess, I think, of the moon, you know? So there's that whole moon thing. And Harrow is just gonna be there as your psychologist, because clearly all of the other episodes you've watched, just a delusion, which, like, obviously they're not, but I am curious to see how this gets explained away. And also, like, if this was the way we're going, Harrow has, like, a really heckin' weird office for a psychologist / psychiatrist. Like, it's just full of a lot of creepy things, which is not usually the vibe you want. And this whole insane asylum kind of has, like, a ultra clean spa bathhouse feel. Like, it's not hospital like, it's like the inside of a swimming pool. It's strange. I mean, it's purposeful because he falls into a pool after he gets shot. And so the fact that everything has that very like, we're in all this tile and we're inside of a swimming pool thing does sort of make sense. I don't know if they did that on purpose or it's me reading into things. But then there's a creepy hallway, and wow, I don't think there was a creepy hallway in all of last episode. And really, I just thought maybe the scouts hadn't done their job and hadn't found a creepy location for every episode. So I'm really happy to see that the creepy hallway is back, because I'd missed them. And then he goes into a hospital room where somebody's banging in a sarcophagus, and Mark opens it, and inside is Steven. And they hug, and it's cute. And that had to be one heck of a scene to shoot. I'd love to see the behind the scenes of Oscar Isaac meeting Oscar Isaac. But they're sweet, and they seem excited to see each other, and there's just so much happening in that bit that's just so much sweeter. And then they're both like, yeah, we definitely got shot. Clearly this isn't real. And then they run down the hallway, and then there's a boom, 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 and the door opens, and there is a hippo goddess, and she says, hi. And then they scream. And maybe the hippo goddess is another Khonshu girlfriend, I don't know. But what I do not understand is why Mark and Steven, who have both on separate occasions had conversations with Khonshu. And let me remind you what Khonshu looks like, right? This is a skeletal figure wrapped in mummy robes whose head is a giant bird skeleton. Like, it doesn't look like a bird, it's a bird's skull. And he mostly has appeared like in the creepy nighttime. And Steven was freaked out by him, but has also had conversations with him. And Mark just like talks to him on the regular, like, hey dude, how's it going? Just wanted to catch up. Just wondering what's going on in your life, right? So they have conversations with this creature, but a hippo who very kindly says hello, terrifying, and they scream. I don't know. I have no idea what's happening. I'm very much ready for the next episode. I guess I'll have to wait a week for that. I would love to know your thoughts on this episode of Moon Knight. Like, how are you feeling? How much did you miss the creepy hallways? And how much do you believe that Layla deserves her own series? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you tomorrow.